For 30 years, enterprise security meant one thing: keep the bad files out. But as attackers move into system memory and code changes its shape, the threats are simply drifting through the gaps in that defense. Traditional antivirus functions like a digital bouncer with a blacklist. It uses signature-based detection to scan files as they hit the disk, checking their unique hashes against a database of known malware. If the math matches a known threat, the bouncer blocks the file. But attackers now use polymorphic malware to bypass this entirely. This code automatically randomizes its internal strings and changes its own hash value every time it builds. By the time a signature is written for one version, the attacker has already generated 10,000 new ones that the database won't recognize. Even worse, many modern attacks are completely fileless. They weaponize legitimate, trusted system tools like PowerShell to execute commands directly in your computer's RAM. Because there is no physical file written to the hard drive, there is nothing for a traditional scanner to pick up. This creates an absolute total blind spot. Legacy antivirus was designed to scan physical objects on a disk. It has no mechanism to monitor the live malicious scripts running in active memory. In this environment, a breach is a mathematical certainty. Attackers no longer need to break the locks when the defense leaves the walls wide open. Next-generation antivirus, or NGAV, tried to close the gap. Instead of a list of bad files, it uses machine learning to analyze the behavior of code, attempting to block zero-day exploits before they execute. However, even AI-driven blocking has a limit. When an attacker uses stolen, legitimate administrative credentials to log in, they bypass these pre-execution filters. To the system, they aren't a virus, they're the boss. Catching those intruders requires a different structural approach: Endpoint Detection and Response, or EDR. EDR operates on the assumption that a breach is inevitable. It moves the focus away from the perimeter and toward the continuous, second-by-second monitoring of every device on the network. This matrix shows the objective change. EDR prioritizes minimizing dwell time, the window an attacker has before detection. But achieving this visibility requires recording every process, generating massive telemetry data, and a heavy operational burden. EDR gives you total visibility, but it also gives you a fire hose of data. Without a plan to manage that information, your security team will be paralyzed by the volume of it. To catch a hidden attacker, an EDR agent has to record everything: every registry change, every network socket connection, and every parent-child process relationship across the entire company. It uses indicators of attack to find trouble. If a trusted program like Excel suddenly tries to download an external script and dump system credentials, the EDR flags it as a behavioral anomaly. The reality of this monitoring shows up here, in the top right quadrant. An untuned EDR is high impact, but it's also high effort. Because normal IT maintenance looks a lot like an attack to an algorithm, the system triggers a constant stream of false positives. If you don't aggressively tune these thresholds, your analysts will face alert fatigue. They start drowning in thousands of warnings a day, which leads to burnout and the risk of missing a genuine critical alert. There are costs beyond the labor, too. Storing months of telemetry data in the cloud is expensive, and tracking that much employee activity introduces complex privacy hurdles under regulations like GDPR. More data only improves security if you can actually use it. Without rigorous filtering, EDR becomes a noisy and expensive distraction, rather than a defense. The most dangerous moment for your infrastructure happens during the migration, when you're physically replacing the old antivirus with the new EDR agent. If you run legacy antivirus and a new EDR agent in full prevention mode at the same time, you're asking for a system crash. Both agents will fight for the same system interrupts to block the same file. This results in frozen endpoints and blue screens. To survive the rollout, you have to follow a graduated 3-step transition. Phase 1 is detect only. For the first month, the EDR agent watches but doesn't block. This allows you to build a behavioral baseline and whitelist your internal apps without interrupting the business. In Phase 2, you turn on prevention specifically for those fileless and memory threats the legacy AV can't see. This avoids a double blocking conflict while immediately closing your most dangerous security gaps. Finally, in Phase 3, you uninstall the legacy antivirus and give the EDR agent total, unified control over the endpoint. The transition works because it is deliberate. Rushing the process might get you to full protection faster, but it will likely break your IT infrastructure along the way. For mid-sized teams, the problem isn't the software, it's the manpower. Most organizations don't have enough people to manually investigate every behavioral alert the EDR produces. If you lack the headcount for a full security team, you have to lean on automation. That is the role of active EDR. Active EDR uses local AI to assign storyline IDs to entire chains of events. If a process turns malicious, the agent correlates the behavior on the device itself. It doesn't wait for a round trip to the cloud to decide if it should act. This enables response at machine speed. If ransomware begins encrypting files, an active EDR agent can instantly kill the process and roll back the changes, returning the system to a clean state automatically. You're trading two things for this speed. First, there is a higher licensing cost for the software. Second, you have to trust the algorithm to make the right call on when to isolate a machine or kill a process. Active EDR swaps human oversight for operational survival. It's a strategy for teams that need high-speed defense but can't afford a room full of analysts to provide it. Your final decision shouldn't be about chasing features, it should be about your actual resources. Start with this question. Do you have a dedicated 24/7 security operations center? If you have a full SOC, you can leverage Enterprise EDR or XDR. This gives your staff the deep data they need for proactive threat hunting and custom rule building. But remember the cost. You need highly skilled engineers to manage the tuning, or your team will be overwhelmed by the data. If you don't have the staff, ask if you have the budget for automation. If the answer is yes, active EDR is your path. It lets the software handle the triage, which protects your endpoints without requiring a large internal team, though you'll face higher upfront software costs. If you have neither the staff nor the automation budget, you must look at Managed Detection and Response, or MDR. This is where you outsource the 24/7 monitoring to third-party experts who watch your network for you. Buying the most expensive enterprise tool without the people to run it is a waste of capital. Your current headcount is what determines your security architecture. Legacy antivirus can't see the memory-based attacks that define modern cybercrime. At this point, moving to EDR is a base requirement for any organization that wants to see its blind spots. You are trading the simplicity of the old model for total visibility, and that brings a real operational load. But the risk of a ransomware shutdown far outweighs the difficulty of tuning your alerts and managing the transition. Ultimately, antivirus is just a lock on the front door. It's useful, but it isn't enough when someone is already inside. EDR provides the internal cameras and the automated blast doors. It lets you see the threat and contain it before it reaches your data. A secure building needs both the lock and the internal response. Just make sure the system you build is one your team is actually equipped to manage.